Hi guys, I'm David with the Disponett Experience, and today we're hanging out with Leah Anderson, who has over 8 years of experience as an OT, started her own OT company called Thrive Therapies, and I'm just going to let her tell us a little bit about her background. She's an amazing person, and I'm really excited to dive into some topics with her about being an OT and an entrepreneur and business owner with employees.
Yeah. I'm Leah. I'm an OT. I've been an OT for about 10 years. And I'm trying to think of like how to explain.
Well, you graduated and headed over to Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much after you graduated and kind of worked for another company, being an OT, getting a lot of experience. You were in Chicago for 6 years?
Yes. So yeah, I graduated in 2012. I worked at St. Joe in Lexington for like a year and paid off like loans, and then went up to Chicago on a contract job at Loyola University Medical Center and worked on the neuroscience service line for about a year, and then switched to home health in Chicago, which was a very interesting job. And I did home health for a very long time. And then I switched to outpatient because I decided I didn't want to drive around as much. And I wanted to kind of I had goals at the time of like being a hand therapist and getting my hours in so I could study and sit for that exam and kind of distinguish myself as a OT. So I started getting in the outpatient world, but then the pandemic happened. And so I got furloughed. And so I thought that was a great time to move back home and be closer to my family because it was like a pandemic and I didn't know what was going to happen. So I moved back home, and I always had the thought and the plan that I would start my own business. So I just kind of like willy-nilly started looking into it, researching, getting some checklists for business owners. And I just kind of thought, this will be something I'll do on the side, just, low key, not really like a full-time thing, just see what happens.
So there's specific skill sets that people kind of go into within OT that people like specialize in. Mm-hmm. What are some of those? So you say like hand therapy. That's something that you could specifically kind of just do hand therapy versus being a more broad spectrum.
Yeah. I was interested in hand therapy because I think there's only, of all the therapists in the world, there's less than like 5%. It would put you in the top 5% of PTs and OTs as a specialist as a hand therapist because there's just so few of them. Also because it's another board certification exam that's really challenging. I think it has like a 30% pass rate.
Wow. Okay. That's crazy. Yeah.
And a PT or an OT can.
So you got to be really committed to getting it. It sounds like if you're going to go for it. Yeah.
And then a lot of other OTs will specialize in like pediatrics, sensory integration, treatment. Behavioral sorts of specifications.
And you mostly just work with special population, right? An older population, senior citizens.
Yes. I focus on seniors.
Senior, okay. Well, I call them, special population then. And have you always worked with seniors, even when you were in Chicago and when you moved back to Lexington?
No, I had like a variety. Mostly the adult population, though, would be the setting that I've been in. I've dabbled a little bit in pediatrics, but mostly adults. Because my thought process with that was, if I can learn everything there is to know about the most complicated and complex part of the population, then everything else will be a lot easier. But I've just kind of like stayed because I enjoy working with seniors and
found your little niche in a manner of speaking. So when you moved back, you were working for a company and then you kind of started your own side thing. Was that just you starting off, I guess, then? Like, how did you go about, like, what was kind of your process in starting that smaller version of your larger business now?
Mm-hmm. I got as far as I could by myself, just like reading things on the internet and following different gurus who advise physical therapists on starting their cash practice. And like, there's a lot out there on that. And then I stumbled across this OT named Kara Welk, who was formerly a professor for she's been an OT as long as I've been alive. And so I noticed she had like a little program where you could get like a mentor, and kind of like a business in a box. So you can make sure you like dot all your I's and cross all your T's for being a business owner and not like overlook anything that could get you in, some sort of complicated situation.
So did it help quite a bit I'm guessing you were able to have phone call conversations or Zoom calls with her Did that really help having a mentor, like someone to kind of guide you? I'm guessing you got her right at the beginning, right as you're trying to get your business off the ground.
Yeah, I first just like joined the Facebook groups and was like reading what other people were up to because they're doing all sorts of creative, outside of the box, non-traditional OT and PT practices. Speech therapy too, are in the group, in the circles. And then I joined like a cohort of like 15 therapists across America who are kind of all in the same part of their business, like the early stage marketing, getting their name out there. But yeah, there was educational resources. There was weekly Zoom meetings, mentor coaching. If you wanted like extra, I could meet with like a billing expert. I had one consult with legal. They made sure we understood accounting for taxes. Like, it was really helpful.
Well, I mean, doing what you're doing, there's a lot of, I feel like, moving parts because eventually you've probably got to get Medicare or Medicaid approved, VA approved, because those companies pay out if you have clients that fit within their lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so getting credentialed with payers is a lot different than getting started. Because when I first started, I was just out of network with everyone. But now I'm having those conversations with payers about whether I contract and get in network or not. And it's a very complicated, lengthy process.
Got a friend coming by to say hi here.
Aslan.
And he's out. So how many clients did you end up having while you were kind of doing both jobs? Or you're kind of working for somebody and just getting your business off the ground? How many did you build it up to?
Yeah, I was working like a PRN part-time role with a similar company. And then I started with like my friend's mom who had like a medical incident. And so they were like, yeah, will you be her OT? And I was like, sure. So I like came to her home a bunch and did intensive therapy for about 2-3 months. So that was like my first client. And I started in November of 2020. So by March of 21, I had about 5 or 6 clients on my own, which I would see 2 or 3 times a week. So I was basically working part-time by myself and part-time somewhere else being employed. And then a lot of my clients were at Richmond Place, which is a senior building here in Lexington, independent living facility. And I went back there because when I was in college, I was a CNA and would take care of some people who lived there as like a caregiver type role. And I kind of networked with one of the marketing directors, and she was like, oh my gosh, so many people need OT. She like knew about OT, and she was like, seniors need OT. I can give you all these referrals. So she really kind of got my foot in the door there. And then one thing led to another, and volume picked up, and I was able to hire more therapists.
And you guys now have an office there. I mean, you left your previous job, and now pretty much what they did at their senior assisted living facility, you started pretty much a similar business where you had OTs, PTs, speech therapists, all working in and outpatient, right?
Yeah, I worked for a company that like literally did the same thing I did. So I got to see how it looks. The operation. For like a year, or about 8 months, I got to see what it looked like being a clinician and just going through just as an employee, which is very like simple. It's so much easier just to clock in and clock out now that I'm a business owner and see what's involved. But, so yeah, as I was working for them, I worked for myself. And then one day I heard that company was going to put a bid in for where I had the lion's share of my clients. And I was like, oh, a bid? I don't know. I heard that you can't like pay for Medicare referrals or try to like win any sort of bids. So it sounded the alarm in myself to know that I needed to do something. So I reached out to the executive director at Richmond Place and kind of talked to her about myself as a therapist and what I've been doing for her residents and how I wanted to start a business, and I could offer PTOT and speech, and my values align with your company values, and I think it would increase like the quality of your residential community where people are trying to fight for their independence and not need that extra layer of help. So she interviewed that other company that I worked for, and she interviewed me. And I don't know how I got that opportunity, but I did. And I went through the process of like signing a contract with them so that I am, I rent space there on site to be able to have like my operations for Thrive Therapies, where we have outpatient and home health services.
Okay. So what are some things that you've seen in the past working as an OT for somebody else, that you're kind of like, I want to change this because I now have the control running my own business, like things that you feel like were not the best practices or just things that you think needed updating or improving, that now that you're a business owner, you can be like, well, we're not going to do it this way, even though that I've seen multiple companies, did you take away anything that you did or didn't like?
So one thing I didn't like is in my experience as an OT, I felt like rehab managers and executives were constantly trying to figure out how to get more out of us for less. And so I've seen compensation go down over the years. I've seen, that work culture of like hustle and stay long hours and all that stuff in order to climb. And there really wasn't much opportunity to climb. So things I didn't really like were those productivity conversations, because like, I think when you're working as an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, you kind of just need to give your patient the attention that they need in order to meet your goals. And I don't like the idea of like being rushed for time or thinking about people as dollar signs because there's some sort of pay incentive. And it really is hard to get all your charting done in less than 15% of your day.
Well, and there's a lot of reports, right, or things that you've got to write up to send to Medicaid or Medicare, like certain things that you guys have to keep up with so that they will keep, giving you money for clients. That's time consuming too, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at least an hour a day, and an 8-hour day would be, for me, assuming I had some evaluation and discharge reports, progress reports, things that take longer time. And then just like calling patients' families, their power of attorneys, their doctors, arranging for different appointments that need, where you need to get like an MRI or they need to go back to their podiatrist. There's a lot of logistical parts that I think that end up taking more time as a small business, because I don't have a lot of like office personnel to kind of like do the gopher stuff. So how did you change the productivity thing? I mean, so I'm guessing you have a different system than what you're used to doing as far as productivity is concerned. Yeah, I'm starting to do this scorecard, this weekly and monthly scorecard for each individual therapist based on their values and career goals and, financial goals, so that they can check in and reflect, am I meeting my financial goals? Which, is parallel to productivity, but it's something that I would work with them and allow them to set based on their metrics in the past. Like, okay, so if you're averaging, 60 visits a week and you're happy with that lifestyle of, what that means in your paycheck, then let's try to hit those markers every week. And, maybe in 3 months from now, we try to add in 65 if that's, something that's doable. Right. Or if we need to scale it back and you want to do something different, like more education or like take on a student or do a community project, teach a class, do some sort of workshop.
Do you push further education with your employees? Like, giving them time so that they can actually get more education to be better at their job? Yeah. Well, they're required to keep up with their continuing ed in order to renew their license and be able to practice. So I'm a big fan of just throwing different continuing ed opportunities their way. And if I approve their continuing ed, then usually I try to pay up to 50% of the cost, or try to pay them that day that they went, depending on which is more valuable to them. I worked at a company and they gave us $50 a month to order up to $50 worth of books a month on Amazon. That had, as long as it fit within so like they did a lot of coding for websites and apps. So if you ordered a coding book or multiple coding books or something that was within your job realm, mine was social media at the time, that they would reimburse me up to $50 a month what's there, of course they're hoping that you're reading these books that you're getting, we didn't get paid extra to read the book, but if it was something that you're like, I don't know if I want to spend $30 on this book, it's like, well, it's going to be covered at the end of the month. And so that's one thing that they did to help with their employees' further education. So
that's so fun.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was great. Surprisingly, not a lot of people took advantage of it. So I thought more people. I ordered a couple books on social media and read those and kind of helped me out a little bit. But it was towards the end of when I was there when they kind of implemented it. But I thought it was a pretty cool program.
So did the $50 roll over if you didn't use it?
No, I think it's just like $50 a month, which, I mean, the average book probably is what, 20 to 30, but I know that for like coding and stuff like that, I bet if it was like $100 book, and it was something that was really important to that coder and they were going to do it, I bet you they would have covered it though. I'd even talked to them about, and they considered it, but they decided not to. They have a lot of overweight employees. So like the owner can't like say directly to them, like, you need to work out, because that, that would be some kind of harassment or something with HR. So I had talked to him about, well, you should offer personal training and like tell them that you'll pay up to 50% of their personal training or something like that. And we had started the process of it, but then I think they did the math. People actually went through with doing it and they're like, I don't know if we can afford it. Which, to be honest, I bet you there would have been like one person that probably was like, 50% off personal training. I'll take advantage of that. So I think further education, I think that's an important thing with, helping your employees because it helps you.
Yeah. Just thinking about the idea of having $50 to spend on my own, like, professional education, like, it definitely makes my energy go up. And I'd like to see who I would be today if that were always on the table,
right?
Like throughout my career.
Right. So, because stuff like that, I think you're investing in your employees, right? And you're going to get that $50 back if they're actually going through with whatever that education is. And I'm like, the place I was at previously, I think they cover anytime I need my first aid, like updated every 2 years, I have to get a new first aid certification. And I think they cover that because it's also a requirement of the job. But yeah, anything that you can do that can get employees excited about learning that isn't too costly for you or within the budget, I would think an employer would get back tenfold from it, Mm-hmm. So you've been in business for 2 years. How long have you had the contract with Richmond Place then?
Since April of 2021.
Okay, so about a year and a half that you've been. And how's growth, and what are things that you've learned that you maybe made mistakes on, that you look back, you're like, well, I learned from this, or things that you're like, that you could just kind of partake some advice for other people out there, just general advice for starting a business. I'll put you on the spot.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is a quote from one of my mentors. She said, "Don't hire out of desperation."
Okay. That's probably smart.
Yeah. And I think like with my situation, it wasn't like a slow, steady climb to where I am today. It was like nonchalant, this is a side hustle, to like, here's a huge opportunity. There's all these folks who need PT and OT and speech. Like, you better go because they're knocking on the door. And so I had to figure out like how to run a therapy practice really fast. And so one mistake I made was hiring a medical biller online. And I think I just learned the process of just asking better questions before I give someone an opportunity, right. Spending more time with them, making sure our personalities mesh, and really like vetting and checking their references to make sure that, they align with my values of like integrity.
Right.
So I think I have been burned a couple of times just by like being like, oh, I really need a person. Like, otherwise I'm just missing out on like a ton of volume.
Right. Money on the table.
Yeah.
I get that.
But I think I've learned if it's not a good fit for that person, it's also not a good fit for you. And so to kind of discern with that person when I'm interviewing to make sure like this is like, don't just do this because like you need something to do or it's a stepping stone. Like, make sure that you are fully aligned. You're a full body yes to this process, because it always comes out like sideways, if not.
Right.
Or we end up wasting each other's time like 3 or 4 months down the road when it isn't. So
you feel like you become a better interviewer when it comes to hiring or hiring new staff or outside companies that are going to assist your company with growth.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, I think. Learn from your mistakes, as they say. One thing that we haven't touched base on that we probably should have touched base earlier. I mean, what exactly is an occupational therapist? For people out there that have heard of OTs, but they don't, I think a lot of people know what a physical therapist is. I wouldn't say as many people know what the day-to-day is like for an OT and a speech therapist, because that's not something at least I hadn't seen much of till I was working for a company working with senior citizens as a personal trainer.
Yeah. So in working with seniors, typically occupational therapists are focused on what's considered activities of daily living, ADLs, and instrumental activities of daily living, IADLs. And so ADLs are more of like your self-care activities, dressing, bathing, grooming, getting in and out of the bed, out of the shower, in and out of the car safely. And then your instrumental activities are like paying your bills, going to see your doctor, working at a job, spirituality, sleep, leisure, stress management, mental health. So specifically, it looks like we go in and assess for any functional deficits and try to look for any limiting factors that could be contributing to those deficits. And so like a typical example would be like, okay, someone's mom no longer feels safe getting in and out of the shower because they had like a hip replacement and they have so much hip flexion. So we come in and train them, like, here's how you get in and out. Here's the tools you need, equipment. Here's the body mechanics you should use. And here's how you'll do it safely. And then we either train a caregiver or train them to do it or work with them, for a long time to be able to do it on their own. And I think that, with the senior population, it really is about trying to get them to maintain their independence and autonomy without needing a caregiver.
Is that extremely important to a lot of them?
Yes. Yeah, because caregivers are expensive. They're like $25 an hour.
Right. Well, I would just be like, I want to be on my own. I don't want to have somebody. I wouldn't worry about the money as much as just like, I just don't want help. Or not that I don't want help, but I want to be able to live my life my way, on my own terms to a certain extent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So another example of like OT would be a lot of times in outpatient, we work on shoulders, elbows, and hands. So more of like your upper extremity as it relates to function.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think of where I'm going with this.
I'm really excited to find out where you go with this.
Because we need our arms and hands and our minds to be like engaged in meaningful activity. Right. So kind of OTs hone in on that in the outpatient setting. Whereas a lot of times OT will also pick up a client who like didn't have success in physical therapy. They can't change, the physicality or whatever deficit or injury, illness, whatever. It's a chronic condition. And so then they come to us and say, well, what do we do now? How do I manage this chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and be able to walk to my mailbox every day with oxygen? And so OT will take more time kind of working on lifestyle adaptations and energy conservation techniques so that they can live a happy life, that, they don't have to live in fear of going back to the hospital or having a fall. They have all the resources in their home, things like that.
What would you say the rate is of people that go, excuse me, the rate of people actually showing up, participating and getting better versus people that try to, I guess, push back and, they're missing sessions, or I'm sure you have exercises that you expect some of your clients to do when you're not there, things they can do in their room. Are people pretty good about that in general in that age group, or is it a lot of like extra legwork trying to stay on top of them and make sure that they're making those efforts and trying to move forward?
I feel like the answer to this question, But in my experience,
I did work in the environment for like a year and a half. So I do, but guess what? The people listening to us, they don't.
Yeah. Well, as you could guess, seniors they're getting a little bit older and things are getting more difficult. And that whole volition factor of like just the get up and go is sometimes like waning. So it does require a lot of extra time and effort to get them to be compliant with what we're trying to educate them on doing with their bodies. So just like, a lot of people are adult learners. We try to come at them, with a piece of paper with instructions, real life examples, demonstrating over and over, repetition, training, their husbands, wives, caregivers, children, whoever we can get to come with them, giving them homework to do, trying to create a sustainable plan where they either exercise regularly or join the senior center, silver sneakers, just something to kind of maintain the progress that we've made. Otherwise, people do just sort of expect therapists to come in and make them better. And I'd say what percentage? I'd say like 30 to 50% of our population are not very motivated in getting better, but they want to get better. So they keep coming back. And they're like, my insurance is paying for it,
Right.
But they're just so used to being prescribed like medications and then things just immediately changing.
So have you learned over time, I guess, how you communicate with certain people and how you're able to get more out of it? Because I'm guessing that there are different OTs that probably have a higher success rate because they've just learned how to deal with it, right? They've dealt with enough seniors and they're like, okay, well, there's this type of person, so I need to kind of attack it this way and hopefully get the results this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, OT goals are sometimes simple, so they're easy to meet and they are a lot of times short term. So if someone did undergo a surgery or a fall, a lot of times, after a couple months, we can get them back to some level of baseline to sustain it. And so whether they continue doing all the, exercises we told them when they were working with us or not, sometimes once you get back to normal, you just get back to normal and you don't need to keep doing it. But is that what you were asking?
Yeah. Well, I was just kind of, in a manner of speaking, just saying, like, I feel like, at least when I was personal training with senior citizens, and I only did it for a little over a year and a half, I learned that I would change the way that I spoke or communicated or worked with different senior citizens at different times, because I would hit like a wall with certain senior citizens where like one senior citizen, I could just push them hard. I had this World War II veteran, 102 years old. And like that dude had no quit in him. Like he's going to outlive me. I swear he's going to be 150 and I'm going to be on my deathbed. But he would be in pain. Like I'd have to slow him down because I could tell, like I'd see him, like we'd be doing like a leg extension, on the machine. And I could see his face wincing every time. And I'd be like, all right, we're not doing that today. And he'd be like, no, I'm fine. I got this. I'm like, no, I know your knee's bothering you more than normal today. So we're going to skip it. We're going to move on to something else to work on, stabilizing that knee better. I mean, he's just old. So, but I knew with him, having a more aggressive attack it kind of style worked better, where I have some of my senior citizens, like I have one guy and I just know like he will quit me and he will stop working with me if I don't let him lead the session. So like he gives me 20% of his 100% that he could actually give me. Like he has this fear of becoming too healthy and that he's going to lose his long-term health insurance for some reason. Even though that I don't keep notes, unlike you have to keep notes, you have to update. I don't have to. Like I just come in, I work with them, and then we go our separate ways. No one ever knows if you're getting healthier or not, right? Besides me and maybe my boss. But he's afraid of it. For some reason, it's this fear of losing his long-term health insurance. So he literally will go like 20%. And I just learned with him, I just let him lead the session. And what I do is over time, I'll increase small things, but it takes me forever to get to a point where I can increase. So like if we're doing, you guys have one of those bikes that with the, and you can change on the side. Step. Yeah, exactly. So you can change the resistance on the side. So like, I put him at 2 one day, the first day, and he's like, oh, this is too much. So I put it at 0. He's like, oh, this is good. But by the time I left the job, I had increased them up to in like a month to 3, and he was okay with it. Right. and I'd increased them from 5 to 7 minutes. So like I let him lead the session and make him feel like he's in control, but I would slowly change things in his session so that, you know, maybe I was getting like 25% out of him, but it took me a month to get that extra 5%, right? So I guess what I was asking, as far as an occupational therapist, you know, or any of the PTs or speech therapists, learning how to deal with clients, I think is a really important thing. And so like I was just asking like kind of how that is in your world, as far as, you know, hiring your employees, because if you've got people that care, that understand that, I feel like you can get more out of your clients.
Yeah. I think I would call it therapeutic use of self. Like whenever you work with a client, you have to kind of establish a rapport and a level of trust.
For sure.
They have to know that you are in their corner, seeking their well-being. And I think when you have that rapport, then you get more buy-in from the client, and it takes time. And that's something that I kind of look for now in interviews, is like, how are they in just like their soft skills and engaging.
I think they're extremely important. Soft skills are just, it's a must in today's world, at least running a business, owning a business, and, you know, depending on the job, working in a business.
Yeah. So, especially because, you know, the adult population, they have been through the healthcare system. They've heard a lot of bad things. They've had things happen. They know about like weird, incidents. And so, you know, you are working on their body. It is delicate. It's complicated. They have fears. A lot of adults have never really exercised before. I find that
a lot, because that wasn't a thing that they dealt with growing up. I mean, really, to be honest, like when they were growing up, gyms, there were very few gyms in the country.
People were just starting to like power walk and maybe jog.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a completely new concept for especially anybody over 75 or 80.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like teaching them how to be aware of their body and mindful of their body in space when they're not used to that kinesthetic awareness, because they never really exercised and they're afraid of exercise. They don't really understand. And then already, like, you know, a lot of people have arthritis, and, you know, they had this car wreck, and there's so many other underlying issues that it makes it really complex to hold all those things in sight, and also get someone to comply with what you're essentially trying to get them to do that you think is better. As a healthcare professional, you think you know, a better way to go about doing this thing that you can't do anymore, and you have to get them on board with doing it. And it is like it's an art and a science.
No, it is. It is for some, and then some people are just like, hey, I'll just do whatever you every once in a while you get that person. It's like, I'm just going to do everything you tell me to do, and I'm going to do it when you're not here. I'm going to do it when you're here. But that's far and few between, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like everything in society is so instant, and like a lot of things just happen a lot faster. And I've noticed that people are impatient. They're not willing to wait. But like the adult population, it just takes longer, because we have to come at them from every direction in order to like get that shift in their pattern. And whether it's a movement pattern or behavior pattern, it really is. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth, but it's a necessary thing. And most of the time, almost 99% of the people are very glad that they went to their PTOT or speech therapist that day.
So what are, you kind of mentioned interviews and what you look for. Do you have like a set of certain questions that you pretty much always ask?
I'm a little more organic. It's just kind of based on when I read someone's resume, and I try to like really get a feel for their experience.
So you build it off the resume a lot of times? Well,
yeah. I ask some questions about it, and then I try to say, why do you want to work for Thrive Therapies? What are your values? What's your 1-year goal, 5-year goal? Questions like that, just to kind of get a feel to make sure that we're on the same page.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
But a lot of times they're just random questions based on, you worked, at this clinic, I see that you have this certification. I just like bring up different things based on their resume.
Do you have questions where you try to get a feel for their soft skills? Because as far as just being able to communicate with the client is like everything, I think. Because I don't care how good you are as a therapist, if you don't know how to talk to people and communicate in a way to convey what you want out of them, or as a therapist, then like you could be really good at the technical side, but if you can't do the the communication side, it's kind of a fail.
Yeah. I have them come on site after I do like a Zoom interview. I have them come in for an in-person interview, and sometimes I'll have them sign the waivers and watch a therapy session. A lot of times we'll be in the lobby amongst other people who are coming in and out, and I'll just kind of like watch their interactions with people. Did they talk with the lady at the front desk? Did they check in? Were they cordial? Did they ask good questions to significant people who I introduced them to? Things like that.
Interesting. You should put them in a room and see, and like make them wait 2 or 3 minutes and see how much of that time they spend on their phone, or they just wait there patiently.
That's a good one.
I don't know. I just came up with it.
It's more so like I put them in a room with myself, and if they pass the test of talking to me for like an hour or two and running around doing whatever it is I'm doing that day when they come in.
I never get the job. I'm struggling to talk to you right now.
It's like, what is my experience too? Because, I think therapy is it's a very like almost intimate and healing profession. And I'm very passionate about it. I feel like it's like a calling of mine. So I do try to gauge that when I'm meeting with clinicians. And most people go into the therapy industry. I mean, they're caring by nature. I don't think a lot of therapists went into it to like make $1 million or anything, because we're not good at that. We're good at helping people feel better. So, like I try to get a feel for like, are they a people person? Are they truly caring? Do they seem like they have attention to detail? Are they flexible? I think that's one of the most important things I'm looking at, is just like being able to go with the flow. Because being a new business owner, it's like, I don't know, this EMR isn't loading today. I'm sorry, the notes aren't like coming up immediately. Like it's beyond my control. It says the server's updating. Like, you know what I mean? Like those sorts of things, because they tend to, all the stress of running a business accumulates. And then I turn into a version of myself that I don't really enjoy.
Well, anytime we're hanging out and you're in that version, just be like, if you don't want to hang out with me, I'm like, okay, I'm out. I want to hang out with the cool version, not the stressed out.
Yeah, only the cool version. Yeah. So
what was it like? I know that is it Medicaid? You're Medicaid and VA certified?
Medicare.
I get them backwards. Medicare, what was it like as a business? Because I feel like that's got to be a process in itself to be able to get approved, or was it easier than you would think?
To be a Medicare practitioner wasn't very hard.
Okay.
But, once you're a Medicare practitioner, you're obviously not just going to accept Medicare. You're going to accept all these other plans. And just the process of getting enrolled, like they need all your identifiers, like all your information and licenses and certifications, background, resume. They need everything. Insurance. That all these companies want to know that you're a legit individual who's done all the right steps in order to be a provider and for their beneficiaries. So that part, it's just like a lot of paperwork, and
so it's just time consuming. Okay. Mm-hmm. Was it the same thing for the VA? Or are they easier, more difficult?
More difficult.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like I had to go through like 2 or 3 layers of just the enrollment process before I started the credentialing process. And I'm still in the credentialing process, and they have like weird rules if not every single provider that works at your company is enrolled, or, then the whole group isn't enrolled. And they'll only enroll one person at a time, and it takes like 3 months each person for them to get back to you. It's been a whole thing.
Yeah, I'm a veteran, and it's believe me, I've dealt with it too. Like I'll go see one PT. At one point in time, I was seeing one PT for like a year. The nice thing is, as a veteran, they don't really tap out on sessions. Like give me X amount of sessions, but then like because of my knees, I have pretty much a note from my doctor that says I can have as much PT as I want for the rest of my life. So then I just have to call my doctor, and then she just like signs off on it, and I continue PT if I feel like I need it. And I usually only reach out to him if I do something and I tweak my knee and I just want a physical therapist to take a look at it and just see him for a couple sessions. And then if it's more serious, I'll see him for more. But I always see the same guy at court for a long time. And then the VA just one day is like, oh, you're going to this place now. I'm like, no, I've been going to this guy for like a year. Like, I've built a rapport. I trust them. Like, we've got a plan. Like, we know what we're doing. And they're like, yeah, sorry, you're going to this place. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, so, and I had to build and the guy ended up going and seeing over at PT Pros was amazing. And like, it was phenomenal, but it was just like, it was kind of jarring being, seeing starting that whole process again with a new person and then getting to know my background and like everything that I've been through. And so I could only imagine what it's like. I don't know, as a veteran, I know what it's like to deal with it on my side. So I can only imagine what it's like for you guys to deal with it as a business.
Yeah, it can be frustrating. There's a lot of, it's almost as if insurance companies are getting better at not paying for services.
Well, why would they? It's insurance. They just want to make as much money as possible.
They're now hiring like middlemen, like third parties, companies to come and just kind of be the gatekeepers of what gets approved and authorized and what doesn't. And then
I guarantee you those third party companies get a bonus at the end of the year. If like they spent, let's say $10 million this year, and then the next year they only spent $6 million. I guarantee you there's a bonus for saving that $4 million.
Yeah.
Third party.
Yeah. I know.
I guarantee you there's an incentive like that. Like, approve less and we'll give you a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, I don't know what the requirement is to be one of the like admin office personnel who reads all the charts and approves things, but I know that it's not nearly as extensive as what healthcare professionals went through to get to where they are. And so it's frustrating to be like, yeah, I am the expert in the field and I'm recommending this treatment. And then this, insurance company hired some random person who a lot of times when I call, it's really frustrating to talk with them because they don't give clear answers. And then they transfer me 10 times.
They don't have your knowledge base.
And they only know like a small knowledge base of the situation. And then this little person who has like a minimum wage job, I don't know, I'm guessing, gets to say yes or no. Like, yes, we'll approve this surgery. Yes, we'll approve this procedure code, or no. And it's like, okay, so what's the point of even like going to grad school and getting a master's degree or whatever a lot of people have these days, just to have some, entry level person be like, no, I'm reading the criteria. I don't interpret it that way. It's not approved, and then
that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That, like, it would make more sense. And I'm sure it would be, I don't know how you'd have to pay a lot more, but I mean, if there was an actual OT on the other side of the phone that you're talking to, at least you could have good, clear communication with the person so that maybe you could explain to them like what's going on. But then they would probably approve more stuff because that OT is gonna be like, oh yeah, you're okay. Yeah. They definitely need another 5 sessions or whatever. Like, I totally see where you're coming from. But when you've got Joe Schmo over here, I mean, it's crazy that, especially like it's gotta be crazy for doctors. Because like a doctor's like, this person needs this surgery, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to approve it. And it's like, I'm a doctor. Like, I know the body, and the person on the other line is like, yeah, I know a few things about the body. Definitely didn't go to medical school, but nah, we're not going to do this. That would drive me insane.
Yeah, that's how it goes. It's weird. They're trying to save their money.
They are. It's all about, everything's all about money. So where are you looking to go over the next, how are you looking to expand? What are you looking to do with the business? I know that one of your big things right now is trying to find, I don't know, as an office administrator in a manner of speaking, to kind of help take off some of the load so that I know you can be more focused on figuring out growth for the business.
Yeah, one of my mentors told me that I need to stop working in the business and I need to focus on working on the business.
I have to agree with that.
Yeah. So
but it's hard, right? You got to give up that control.
I have to give up control and all the many hats that I wear. And I'm learning that lesson. That's probably
just don't wear all those hats to your Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, because I'll be told to lose the hat. So right now I have 2 physical therapists, a PTA. I had an OT. I'm an OT, and I have an OT assistant. And I have a speech therapist, which recently joined the team, and I'm really excited about it. The demand right now is probably, I probably just need 1 full-time OT and maybe another PT. And I'd say in the next year, I'd probably like to add 2 clinicians and 1 office staff personnel.
What's a clinician do?
Like a PTOT or a speech therapist.
Oh, okay. They're just called clinicians.
I
Okay.
call them clinician. I
Yeah,
don't
fair
know.
enough. That sounds so official.
Yeah. And I would love to just like hire somebody who wants to geek out in the therapy world and help me run a therapy business. Maybe they have like healthcare administration or business associates, like
Have you ever
MBA, something like that.
Thought about looking for a retired OT PT that just like would want like even part-time job where they already know the industry, but they don't want to like physically be doing it, but they might be interested in helping out with the administrative stuff.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have only been back in Lexington for 2 years, so my like network of therapists isn't that big, but I would
get
love
there because you guys are going to thrive.
that. Yeah. I have a retired professor, OT, who is my mentor I talk to every 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Okay. How many mentors do you have?
I keep saying mentor, but really they're like consultants.
Do you pay all of them, or are some of them just friends that have just given you advice and helped?
My professor, Jill, is a friend.
Okay.
And for the consultants, I pay like a monthly subscription.
How important is that for you? Do you feel like how important have the different consultants, mentors, whatever you want to call them, over the last couple of years? So how many, you got 2 or 3 of them right now, or 2 or 3 that you've used, right? Do you think you would be where you're at without them? Like how important have that been?
Oh, it's so important to have someone else who knows the industry, is literally doing the same business model as you, and has a ton of resources. Like I don't think I would live in fear if I did not have like some consultant telling me every little, significant move and decision I make, like giving me feedback on it and reflecting, and then like actually like seeing the outcome of that decision and like processing that. It's so important.
So for business owners out there, you think it's important that if you can find a consultant or mentor in your budget that works in the industry or had worked in the industry that you're trying to start your business or running your business in, is like really important. Like I've never done it, but I've seriously more recently have thought about, finding a personal trainer mentor to help me grow that side of my business.
Yeah. Yeah. So like my consultant group had like continuing education. They had Zoom. They had like business meetings where you could bring up like any sort of logistical topic or problem that you have. And so you listen to other people who are doing the same, similar business plan. You get like in a cohort of people, and you can process like real life problems that they're going through. And there's a lot of overlap. And like the business owner consultants, like they made the same mistakes and they've been there, done that, and they know exactly what you're going through. So I think it's very, very valuable. And I don't think I'd be where I am today without the help of Kara Welk and Next Level OT group. That's my little resource.
Oh, there you go. Well, I think that's good information there, because like I said, I've never really used a consultant or mentor. I guess I have from time to time, but like very briefly. It's not like an ongoing thing. So how often is it Next Level? Is that the lady you said out in Montana, Minnesota, something like that? How often do you guys interact? I mean, I'm guessing you still interact to this day. You're still doing stuff. She's still giving you advice.
I have an opportunity to meet with her for an hour every other week,
right?
In like a group setting, and typically there's like a networking event where we talk about how we're all marketing in the community and different strategies we've used, resources like posts. I get a lot of content creation for blog posts, ideas that we share around. We have Facebook groups where we ask questions. We have like a billing group where we bring up different scenarios.
So that's a whole mess right there. The billing,
insurance is like a whole nother world.
Right. So you got to be on top of it.
Yeah. This whole time I've just been a therapist who like clocked in and clocked out and really didn't understand like the whole business side of healthcare. But man, insurance is just like a whole new thing. It's just like this realm where nobody understands anything, and there's a lot of fine print, and you better watch out, because before you know it, you might be surprise billed. And it's scary to take that on by yourself. I remember when I got my first like request for medical records from Humana, and I was like getting ready to go on vacation. I was so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was talking to my brother-in-law. He's a doctor. He's like, oh my gosh, Leah, like you're not even going to like blink in a year from now when you get something like this in the mail. I don't know why you're freaking out. This is not a big deal. You're not doing anything wrong. They're just communicating. They're doing their due diligence to get medical records. It's not, you just need to calm it down. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like Humana. It's me against Humana right now. Like they're totally just going to keep all their money and not pay me to be an OT. I just know. I was like so freaked out. But yeah, being able to bring up different like remits and, remit codes and ask like about modifiers on codes when I'm billing and, what is a clearinghouse and how does that work? And like all these different things. It's been super helpful to be in a group of people who are A, doing the same thing as me, and B, there's a group of like leaders who have already done the same thing as me for like 5 and 10 years.
So you can pose a question and someone's like, "Oh, yeah, I dealt with that a year ago. This is how I dealt with it."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be super helpful.
And even like a year ago, it's not always like the same because the like rules and regulations have already changed, but it is enough of analogous of a situation that you can like get some guidance.
What does marketing look for you guys? I would feel like marketing for me as a photographer, videographer, and personal trainer is probably a lot different than what marketing looks for you guys, or trying to bring on new clients. Which, granted, you're at a facility where you're able to interact with the potential clients day in and day out. But I guess for your outpatient stuff, as far as bringing on more people or in home healthcare, whatever that you do.
Yeah. It's mostly word of mouth at the senior building. But in the community, it's more so networking with discharge providers and primary care offices where we do get a lot of referrals, just more so educating different referral sources about the services that we offer. Okay. And then also we offer some workshops for people in the community. Like we did one on speech therapy in the community, and a lot of people came. And so educating, a little bit of blog posts that I, repost in my Facebook page, and then a lot of just word of mouth and meeting with individual physicians and being like, hey, we specialize with, in senior care and we offer the...
How often do you guys do workshops?
Quarterly.
Quarterly? Okay. Yeah, they when I was working at the retirement facility that I was at, we did them like once a month, and I found at first I would just do like an extra exercise class, or I would be like, let's learn how to use dumbbells today with proper form, and like, but I found the most beneficial one where I got the biggest turnout and the best communication is I got with the activities director. I'm sure you guys have one. They have a bus, and I would just take them to different parks in town, and we'd go on walks. And I would have so many people, like it was all these old ladies. And so we'd go to Shiloh, we went to Arboretum, and so once a month it would be in their little activities calendar thing, walk with David at the park. And that was probably my best marketing for in-house. That was my best marketing. It's just, and I got to know the residents. So like, people I would show up to walk that I hadn't met in the building yet, and I get to know them a little bit, and some of them come to class, some of them ended up being my client. But I found that to be super beneficial.
Yeah, we do different things. Like we have a balance class every Thursday, and we do a walking group on Friday where we walk out in the community, and sometimes we'll get transportation to go to the Arboretum or somewhere fun.
You guys do you guys do any brain fitness stuff?
Yeah, that's like one of the workshops that we do is like a brain fit, like where we do all sorts of
convince the facility to pay for a weekly brain fitness class, kind of like the workout class.
Yeah, I need to convince this facility to pay for more things that I do for free. That's part of
Do you do the workout
struggle.
class for free?
What?
Do you do the workout class for free?
I do.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we charge. Well, the workout class that I ran, we charged them an hour of service. That's like $60-$70.
Yeah. Well, part of it is just giving back. It
That's
also
true.
is a great marketing opportunity. They didn't offer to pay me. They just asked if I would do it. And it's like the one, other than the walking group,
Right.
it's,
Hire a personal trainer and be like, hey, we hired somebody, so we got to charge you for the class now.
oh, there you go.
And then you add value to it. Like, this is what this person does. So
Yeah. I mean, I just want to stay in positive,
Right.
vibes. And I'm super grateful to be, to have my headquarters there. It's been a lifetime of an opportunity. I don't think I would be where I am today with, 6 employees and a billing company and couple office admin. Because 2 years ago, I was furloughed and was told to go home. I could keep my job, but come back whenever the census comes back.
And
I
now
was
you have
just
8
like,
employees.
I'm going to try to do my own thing. Cause I did have, I did at one point have a dream of running my own business, cause I always thought I could do it better. So yeah, part of running my business, I believe in, helping the people who can afford the services so we can help the people who can't. And also just giving back to the community and trying to like get people more involved in what services that already exist, but also just like give back, not just like be a provider group that's stationed
That's
at
the
a senior
different.
building.
Well, and you've seen what, like working for a similar company that does exactly what you do. Again, you've probably seen what you think are faults or things that they could be doing better, and trying to make those changes. And because you get to be the change and the difference because you're in charge, right? Mm-hmm. Where there, you've got to kind of adhere to their rules. So I totally get that, which I think is awesome. So, how many hours do you put in a week? Like, do you feel like you're constantly under fire with stuff to do? Like, how do you find time for yourself so that you're able to kind of unwind and get ready for the next big challenge?
Yeah, it's almost been a natural progression to where I like leave after 8 or 10 hours a day. I'm just like, oh, I'm done. It's like I'm fatigued.
Right.
But usually anywhere between, at least 50, if not 60 or 70 hours. It's been like that since the beginning. Since I took on my first physical therapist.
I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had worse weeks too that are higher than that number.
Yeah. I mean, I don't always keep track because sometimes then it feels heavier if I'm aware of how much I'm working. Whereas a lot of it is like I'm passionate about it and I don't really feel like, sometimes it feels like work, but a lot of times it's like, wow, time flew and I figured out like this big thing that means we can help more people. So it's very motivating to see.
Do you have like a cutoff time, like 8 o'clock, I'm not doing any more work, it's my time, or do you just, when it's time to kind of pull away for the day?
For the longest time, I would kind of work on and off all day long, all weekend long. But yeah, I'm getting better at boundaries. And I think now, usually after work, I'll go to the gym or I'll go do something. And then at that point, I just kind of throw in the towel. And I'm like, all right, time to wind down, go to bed, try to fall asleep before midnight.
Yeah. Get up and do it all over again.
Yeah.
What is the next day's challenge? I'm ready.
Yeah, bring it on.
Do you find yourself like waking up earlier since you started the business, like ready to go than beforehand?
Not necessarily. I'm not really an early bird, but I have kind of been on the wake up at 7:30 schedule since high school, honestly.
Just stuck with it for the last 10 years. So
Yeah.
Shit, we're old, just like 15 years.
So I would love to be one of those people who wake up at like 5:30 a.m., goes to the gym, does all their meditation and reading and reads the news. And all
I'm that
stuff.
person for like 2 days, and then I'm the 7:30 guy. I try, but I've found that some things we have strengths and weaknesses, and if we can analyze our strengths, really build on those, and look at our weaknesses and understand them and work around them, So I know I'm not a 5:30 a.m. guy, but I also know certain things, like you said, meditation, trying to get in further education, reading books, you just got to find another way to get it in if I'm not going to wake up at 5:30. So I do know that, and I don't know if you see this with yourself, but I do know that I feel like first 6 hours of my day are the most important hours of my day, that I'm the most productive. So I'm trying to get better at not putting stuff in my first 6 hours that aren't extremely valuable to me. So like, anything that can throw me off, like working out's important, but that gets in the way of like my mental capacity for the first 6 hours. So I try not to work out early. I try to do it more in the afternoon because that's something I can be a little bit tired, or like I don't have to be as focused on. Like I know my workout, I know how to get through it. So like my meetings, podcasts, that's why we're doing it so early in the morning, because this is when my brain's the freshest. That I find that I just try to make those first 6 hours the most, most valuable hours of my day. So when I was working at the retirement home, that's how I kind of figured it out. I would do a lot of morning sessions, like between 9 and noon. And then it would leave me completely worn out to actually get the stuff that I needed to do for my business later on in the afternoon done. And I found that I wasn't as efficient or as good at it. And so I found that like I needed to put things that don't take all my brain power. Like I can train somebody, especially if we have a certain system. I can train them later on in the day, and I can really focus on business stuff in the morning.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Leah, it's been amazing talking to you. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your business. Hopefully some people pull some valuable information out of it. I definitely did. You got any last words or anything you want to say?
Yeah, I feel like just Thrive Therapies is an outpatient mobile group, so
Right.
we can come to people's homes. We also have a clinic at Richmond Place, which is on Ruidoso Drive in Lexington. And we offer home health, like Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B. So we do both. So we have like a hybrid approach. We also have like wellness or cash-based services. And I think something that sets us apart is just we offer all 3 disciplines. So a lot of clinics in town.
And maybe soon to offer a 4th.
Yeah.
Personal training.
Personal training, definitely.
find the
And
right
I'd love
person.
to have a social worker and a nurse
that'd be-
practitioner. Yeah, there's all sorts of
We do
ideas.
we do both know a nurse practitioner, but I do hear she's being they're trying to, multiple other businesses are trying to get her.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see one day. I mean, I know that I need to have a clear direction for my group. And sometimes the entrepreneur or creative type in me wants to try to integrate all these different services. But in all reality, my focus is PTOT and speech for seniors. And so I'll probably just continue on that route and just kind of get more recognition in the Lexington area for being like a smaller woman-owned business that, like we believe in like, integrity, having passion as a therapist, just doing the right thing at all times and letting the business take care of itself. But yeah, I'm excited to grow. I love being, an OT and a business owner. I'm learning all the lessons. But just working in the creative energy of like putting together something out of nothing. I just don't know if I could ever go back to just clocking in and working for someone else, because it's just so neat to be able to be like, yeah, this was once an idea like 3 years ago that I had
It's liberating.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And it's so empowering to be able to think that like now I'm on the level of helping, therapists and clinicians. Like they're my number one asset now. Whereas before it was just like patients, which is a great, calling. But when you've done it for 10 years, it's fun to be able to have more variety in what you're concentrating on and where your energies are going.
Right.
And that's just where I am, like personality wise and in my career. And I'm so excited to be able to help seniors because it's like my heart. And
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. And as always, guys, we'll catch you next time.